Hey,
All right.
Ron.
Oh, now I'm allowed to mute. How you doing? It's Schwa Lee. Like if you think about Prince Ali, happy as he, abla. So I just go print Ron Schwa Lee, so it
Schwally.
flows off to whatever you want it to flow off of.
All right.
There's a
Schwally. I
cool
like that.
picture behind you, dude.
All
Oh,
right,
I thank
Ron.
you. I thank you. I didn't do my hair today. I didn't have enough time. Let me just wipe this down to make sure that there's no schmutz. Okay, awesome. How's everybody doing?
Good.
We're all
Perfect. How are you doing
fantastic.
today?
I'm amazing. Life is wonderful. Today I got to spend the afternoon at an elementary school, working with a third grade classroom on how to discover what their gifts are so that they can share it with the world. And some of them are going to have jobs. Some of them are going to be the next future Elon Musk, Tony Stark. So I like to guide them in the world since I've never really had a normal kind of job as well. So I'm a good candidate to help them with that, especially with my ADHD brain that's all over the place. A couple of the kids in that classroom, they look at me and they're like, "Oh wow, like you're like me." I'm like, "Yep."
Awesome. Love it. Love it. And so today we're going to be talking about seeing the signs of bullying and the strategies to handle those tough situations. I mean, it sounds like you can talk about a couple different things. So bullying is just one of them, I'm guessing. Is that right? Or
Yeah, I can talk about a lot of different things. I mean, I've had a good 46 years on this planet. Bullying is near and dear to my heart, as the phrase is, because when I was 12 years old, my parents put me into a naval academy in New Jersey. And after about 3 weeks of getting bullied and beaten up and physically assaulted, I tried to take my own life after the third week. And that shifted my whole way of being and my programming for about a good 12 years or so. That had me go back to my school that I was at in November and become one of the worst bullies because I pretty much made a choice. No one's ever going to bully me again. And that program, that trauma that kicked in, ran me for a good 13 years, and part of it still does. No matter how much trauma release therapy I do, no matter how much I get these emotions, the energy and motion out of my body, that stuff still exists because our body's an amazing thing and it loves to hold on to trauma and hide it on you.
got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah. And so, you know what? It's nothing like those powerful, dramatic, difficult experiences and journeys that create these stories of transformation that we're about to share, right? And bullying is a big deal nowadays. There's cyberbullying, there's physical bullying, there's all sorts of things going on in the world. People are stressed out. Kids aren't knowing how to reach out and communicate effectively. All sorts of different things. So why don't we start? What do you find is the most transformational aha moment that parents can have to understand bullying, to understand what is happening in bullying, like from especially from the child who's getting bullied, from the parent of the child who's getting bullied perspective.
Well, it's important to first understand why a child is allowing themselves to get bullied, because there's kids that would allow themselves to get mentally bullied or physically bullied. But really, when I say physically bullied, that's actually assault. And then there are kids that are more emotional, more sensitive. Neither one is right or wrong, and they don't know how to respond because, frankly, they've never had training. And all the parents have ever said is, if someone's mean to you, tell a teacher. And especially with the public schools, the way that they're so much different as opposed to 30 years ago when I grew up. One of the most important things that parents, I feel, need to do is have an open communication with their children to lay out expectations. Because if a child in our public school system, and I used to live in New Jersey, which came up with the worst anti-bullying laws in the country, all done by attorneys who had no discussion or conversation with the teachers and the teachers union. Understanding that if you put your hands up to defend yourself in public school, if you even block, you're automatically under the zero tolerance law. They take all the power away from the teacher to handle the situation, do conflict resolution. They know the parents, they know everyone. They take all the power away from the teacher. They send it to an anti-bullying specialist. If your child puts their hands up to defend themselves, they get the same consequence as the bully. They get the suspension. And parents, if you grew up when I grew up, you just believe that it's not like that because when we grew up, if I put my hands up to defend myself or something, the bully was in trouble. I wasn't in trouble. So having an open conversation with your kids to talk to them about have your kids ask you, what do you want me to do if somebody's punching me, kicking me, hitting me in school? And then after I go tell the teacher while there's blood trickling down my nose or my mouth, like, what can I do so that parents can actually say to their kids, you're allowed to defend yourself if that's their belief system. You're allowed, and not only just are you allowed to defend yourself, don't just say defend yourself, stand up for yourself, show them. Someone tries to hit you in the face, you do a block. Somebody tries to grab your leg, you lift it up. And I always say to every parent of every child ever, put your kid into martial arts no matter what, because the what you get from martial arts is self-confidence and the strength and the calmness when you unleash your martial arts upon a controlled environment as opposed to outside is so much more beneficial. So really understanding that the way that we grew up and the way that the rules are, with zero tolerance being abused from being something for weapons, as now being abused all over. And there's also tons of public schools that are notorious for covering up everything, and administrators don't want to talk about it, and principals will lie to your face and say there's no bullying in our school, which the first time a principal says that to you, you need to know, okay, got it, you're not a realist. So it's really that opening that communication instead of just assuming that your kids are safe. Because if you've been watching the news over the last 20 years, kids are not safe in public schools anymore.
Yeah, great point. So, it occurs to me that some parents may not know their kids are getting bullied. Like kids sometimes don't tell their parents. And so that happens, seeing you shaking your head. So how
Absolutely.
do parents know that maybe their child is getting bullied? Are there signs that they look for?
Absolutely. Any immediate change. If the kid does not want to go to school anymore and there's no reason why, that could be a concern. All of a sudden, they get nauseous, they get upset, they don't want to go, they don't want to be around this person, whatever the situation is. That's the first telltale sign. And if you have a conversation with your kid and they're not telling you what's going on, I recommend having a projection conversation, which is talking about how you make up that there's a friend of yours that has a kid the same age, maybe with the same hair, whatever, and they're having these situations. They don't want to go to school too. What would be one of the reasons? And maybe your child might, instead of having that defensive wall of, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to talk about it. Now they're saying, well, maybe this child is suffering through the same stuff I'm suffering. Maybe there's a bully on the bus. Maybe the teacher's being mean. Maybe there's some kid in the locker room area that blah, blah, blah. So it opens it up, because any shift, you can feel it, especially if you're having a good communication relationship with that person. Just that gut instinct. The second, if your kid's not walking out the door excited and happy to go be with their friends, that's a flag right off the bat. And use your gut instinct, because unfortunately we've been programmed to believe that our brain is where we should get our best information from, and our brain lies while our heart and our gut have a much more intelligent system of giving us information and making decisions. So when you look at your child, then your child goes something that doesn't make you feel comfortable, your brain will say, it's okay. And your brain's going to lie to you, and you may force your child to go to school. So then stop with your heart. Look at that, your kid, and go, okay, something's going on. If your gut is going, something's going on. Trust your heart, trust your gut. Don't listen to your brain.
Got it. So, let's say that, I want to talk about two things. The first one is, how do parents talk to their children about this a little more deeper than we just talked about? Second thing is, how do they respond? Because I know how I would respond, but we'll talk about that in a second. So let's talk first about how do parents talk with their children about bullying. Let's say they know they're getting bullied. Maybe they saw it, they heard about it, a friend told them, whatever. They understand it's happening. The kid's either telling them or they're not telling them. But how do they address that with their child? What's the best way to approach it and really kind of talk about it?
The first thing I would do as soon as possible, even before there's telltale signs, is lay out expectations. 4 questions you have your kids ask you, where you model it. And the questions are, what do you want me to do if somebody's making fun of me in school? And then you'll give your answer. And I'm very curious after we go through the questions to hear your answers. Question number 2, what do you want me to do if somebody's making fun of me on a screen, whether it's a laptop, a tablet, whatever it is? Question number 3, what do you want me to do if somebody's hitting me or pushing me or kicking me in school? And then question number 4, what do you want me to do if somebody's pushing me, hitting me, kicking me, touching me outside of school? Because maybe there might be parents that are stuck in their programming of we don't solve violence with violence, because maybe they're victims and they have trauma. So they put that on their own kids, and that doesn't benefit them. So they don't want them to defend themselves in school, but maybe if they're on a playground, they may want to say, okay, on a playground, you're allowed to protect yourself, whatever it is. So opening that communication, and then it's really up to the parents. It's really, it's up to the parents when they're talking to their kids. It's up to them if they want to have a win-lose relationship and conversation or a win-win. Like if you want to have a win-lose relationship with your kids, focus on being right, focus on making them wrong, disacknowledge what they say. I was just having a conversation with a mom 2 days ago that was coaching, and she's talked to her kid, and her kid's like, I don't like it when they make fun of me. And the mom goes, who cares what other people think? And I stopped her right there. I'm like, he does. Just because you're programming of saying these words, who cares what other people think? Well, he cares what he thinks. So just saying that phrase completely cuts off that connection and disacknowledges what he says. So be curious when you're talking, when you catch yourself being right, because human beings love being right. Our brain releases dopamine into our body immediately. And when you're being right about situation, you're making the child wrong. That's win-lose. If you want to create win-win, then being there, having a conversation with the child and believing everything that they're saying, instead of I can't do this, I can't, and just being present with them and telling them what they want. I mean, most of the time when you talk to a parent, what do you want me to do if somebody makes fun of me? They say, go tell a teacher. Now, I know as a martial artist, when I have kids and they grow into the age where this is going to happen, if they ask me, what do you want me to do if somebody's hitting me, punching me, pushing me? I teach them how to block, because I mean, I do something called Yogarati where we start at 2 years old. And that's the reason why, because I want preschoolers to understand martial arts and blocking and defending themselves. This is a high block. Somebody goes to hit you in your face. This is a middle block. Someone tries to touch you in your belly. This is a cover if they swing at you. If they don't stop, this is a front stop where you lift your foot and you place it on their stomach. If that doesn't stop, then this is a hammer fist, and you take the soft part and you smash it one time on their nose, and then the bullying stops. But that's reality in my perspective. And now there's going to be people that like that answer, or there's going to be people that go, oh, and it's totally fine. Your opinion is valid to you, and hopefully your kids will benefit from the choices that you make. So I would love to hear from you. Bob, what would you do? Your kids come up to you and they ask you 4 questions, and those are the questions. What do you want me to do if somebody's making fun of me in school? What would you say?
I lead with a hammer fist myself.
Good for you. Good for you're just like,
But
I'm
you
not
know
even
what?
gonna let you talk.
Yeah,
Okay,
but-
nights out. Sorry, Mr. Professor. Yeah, so
No. Seriously, that's a tough question. And
good.
and,
It's you're yeah, keep
yeah,
going. Sorry.
that's a tough question. And if my child was being bullied, it really depends. I love that your answer about having them in martial arts. That's one thing I would definitely do, because that does give them the tools to protect themselves, right? Because there's no way I'd sit around and have my child be hit. If they're being teased and stuff like that, there's different ways to deal with that. And I wouldn't say it's hammer fist time, but
And I have a few for the mental if you're curious, but keep on going, keep on going.
got it. So I think that's where I would start. And then from there, I like what you said. I would say, listen, you first thing, protect yourself. I don't care what the rules are, protect yourself, because that would be my role. That would be my ethic. And then I would make sure they're also not the bully, right? Not bullying other people, because sometimes, that can happen. And yeah, I say that would be my number one concern is making sure that they protect themselves, and they're also increasing their confidence, that their mental state, their confidence, their programming about themselves is not affected negatively, like you experience yourself.
Yeah.
So
can I throw something else in there that hopefully the adults in the kids' lives can maybe add on to?
please do.
Okay, then just have a conversation with your kids saying, listen, I want you to defend yourself. I want you to protect yourself. Do whatever you need to do. And when you do that, you got to let the kids know. And when you do that, you're going to get suspended. Does it make sense? No. I have videos on my YouTube channel about how I do assembly programs inside. And of course, the principals don't want me talking about this, but kids come up to me during the assembly going, why do I get in trouble when I stand up for myself? Why do I get in trouble when I got hit and I pushed them back? Blah, blah, blah. All these things that the principals are sitting there going, because their jobs are more important than the safety of the kids, unfortunately, for some of them. Make sure you talk to your kid and say, listen, you're going to get suspended. And it's okay. When you come home, you're not in trouble. We're going to go out for pizza. We're going to go out for ice cream. I even say on the day that you got suspended for standing up for yourself or standing up for somebody else who can't stand up for themselves, write that down on the calendar and celebrate that every year as the day that you stood up for yourself. That to me is so much more important than people that go gaga over their birthdays and like, why is the birthday so important? You did nothing. Your mother or wherever did all the work and you're celebrating your birthday. Celebrate the day that the child stood up for themselves so that they're empowered. So that if this happens at 7 and then it happens again at 17, these kids are going to defend themselves, whether boy or girl or whatever. Just that conversation, say, look, you're going to get suspended. That's how it is. And you're not in trouble. And I'm going to walk into the principal's office and look at the person that's lying to me saying, you're not supposed to do this, and be like, listen, great. I'm taking my child. I'll see you in 3 days. You know, you're going to have a lot of cake.
You know, I'd like to hear, because we're a couple guys talking here about bullying kids, and 95% of the people that show up to these programs are moms, females, ladies.
Hi,
And
moms.
what I'd like to do is hear from a few of them as to what their approach would be. I'd love to hear a woman's approach. So if you'd like to come on, just raise your hand virtually, and we'll bring you on. And we'll start with Colby and asking her, what would your approach be, considering the conversation we just had?
So my response is first verbal. I don't think my response would be to tell them, you get away from me and get away from me now, loudly, in a very loud, direct, not always aggressive, assertive. And I said, get away from me and get away from me now. And then when they don't get away from me, the next step would be defend yourself. I mean, in any way possible. So I know,
like in real life, adulthood,
like
the
push
second
them
you
over.
turn 18, yeah, it's right, like in real life, but public school rules are not the same as real life, which is kind of weird because you're supposed to be training people for real life, but you're doing the opposite.
Agreed.
So I appreciate, I love what you said. That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah.
You have kids?
I do. I have an 8-year-old and 11-year-old.
Well, I hope you have a conversation with them soon about 4 questions that you recently heard from me.
My daughter already is there. She is very good at defending her. She got an award in 1st grade for sticking up and befriending children that didn't really have that in them. And so
Nice.
we are an assertive family. You just don't
Good
worry
for
about
you.
that.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am. I
but
firmly believe it.
putting your hands on someone, it takes a minute. So I do want them to use their voice. I do want them to let them know to stay away from me. Don't touch me again, or it comes next. But that would be my beginning point.
Hey, Ronald, we have 2 questions. One, you can
Yes.
say real quick, what are the 4 questions, and then I'll go into
Absolutely. 4 questions. Question number 1. The kids are asking the adults in their lives, what do you want me to do if somebody's making fun of me in school? Question number 2, what do you want me to do if somebody's making fun of me on a screen? What do you want me to do if somebody's hitting me, kicking me, pushing me in school? What do you want me to do if somebody's hitting me, kicking me, pushing me outside of school?
Okay.
And then tell them, and then after you tell them the expectations, and especially when you watch their faces like drop, you're like, really, I can do that? Then teach them, model them, and go do videos. I mean, I have tons of videos on my YouTube channel on Yogarati, just basic blocking and things like that, and just find videos. And like you said, martial arts is amazing for anybody. Imagine if you started a martial arts class with your kid. There's people at 60 years old that do martial arts. Did you know that Al Bundy, Ed O'Neill, is a jiu-jitsu black belt? I didn't know that.
I did not know that either. Huh.
You wouldn't even see
All
that.
right. So the other
What was the second question? Yeah, sorry. Go.
Yeah, the second
I want to
question.
hear the teasing ones too, as well. So the teasing, we talked about the actual putting their hands on someone in terms of the brain teasing part, and then Bob, I'll hush.
Absolutely. You mean the solutions that I have? Okay,
Correct.
so one of them is to say the word and. It's called I call it the and shield. And basically, like Wonder Woman has a shield and Captain America have a shield. Any word that you say to an adult or to a child other than and is going to keep the bullying going. So I do assembly programs where I bring out my and shield. It's like Captain America shield. I'm going to see if my love can go grab it. So I'll show everybody. But what I do is I show the kids how to say the word and then also do something called the power look, which is you looking at the top of the forehead. The power look, I originally was teaching teachers when I do my behavior mastery program. You look at the top of the forehead, all the micro expressions in your face go blank, and it goes from this to that because I'm looking at the top of the screen. So what happens is when you do that to another human being, instead of all the little micro expressions that happen, the eyes get bigger, you're looking at the top of their forehead and you go, and so the person goes, you're stupid, you're ugly, and you're dumb, your hair looks stupid. And you do that enough times, the bully doesn't get the response that they want because their brain, when they see a micro expression on your face change, or you say nah or whatever, or leave me alone, then their brain just gets that dopamine dump that they're looking for. If they don't get that dopamine dump because you're not responding, then they just go on to somebody else. And by the way, this stuff works just as easily with adults. If you have adults in your life, especially like, we're getting around the holidays, which is around the time where we're all supposed to come together and hang out with people that we really don't like, or we would actually see them during the regular year. And then that person that's going to come there and say this thing and that thing to you, just instead of worrying about that person that's going to be mean to you or just going to get under your skin or push your buttons, just go and I've done that to a relative and they're like, what is this and thing? And then they left me alone, never bugged me again.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's address something real quick too. Vicky was saying, I think it was Virginia. No, Virginia was saying
Somebody had another question. Oh, and by the way, too, I offer tons of coaching. So if you want to reach out to me at ron@ronspeak.com, I don't charge for coaching. I just recently, about 4 months ago, only learned about Reddit, like totally out of it. So there's a thing on Reddit that's bullying that I've been coaching people and helping them the whole entire last 3 or 4 months. So even if you're having situations in your life that are similar to that, you can go on there because I even talk to people that are 40 years old that they're still being affected by trauma that happened to them when they're 10 years old. So what was the other question? Sorry, I get a little excited.
All right, yeah, the other question is a concern I hear a lot, which is Denise is saying her son seems to have difficulty kind of distinguishing between what is bullying and what is another student maybe teasing, right? Having or maybe even a different opinion, right? That makes sense? Oh, hold on. Let's unmute Ron again. Here you go. Thank you. Yeah, one more time, Ron. One more time.
All right, I understand. All right, say that one more time because I was losing the mute back and forth too.
So some kids have a difficulty distinguishing between bullying and maybe having a difference of opinion.
Bullying, I mean, having a difference of opinion is having a difference of opinion. I mean, everyone's allowed that. I mean,
Right.
bullying is something.
Have you seen that before with kids where they have a hard time distinguishing between real bullying and maybe getting teased or having a difference of opinion?
Not really in that realm, because if you have a difference of opinion, that's a disagreement. But if somebody is egging you on and continuing to egg you on over and over, I mean, that's and that's sorry about that. I want to get the shield out for everyone. That really hasn't come up. I mean, if you're looking, we're gonna have differences of opinions our whole entire lives. So it takes people to learn to communicate with each other, and also just to understand that nobody has the same opinion as you. And for some reason, like I know people that are programmed that when they hear someone's opinion, the first thing that they do is their program is to tell them their opinion, even though no one asked, and then to spend the next 10 or 15, 20 minutes of their life trying to change the person's opinion. It's an automatic program. And I have that happen a lot when I do some of my trainings and my keynotes. So opinions are opinions, but I love the phrase, let's agree to disagree. Because I mean, if you can learn how to just say that, you're going to save yourself so much free time. I wouldn't be too concerned about, other people's opinions, but then there's people that have been trained to care about judgment. And I don't want to be judged. And guess what? It stinks that you're judged all the time, everywhere, by every single person that knows you. And even when you're not around them, there's people that are judging you in your life. So just do whatever in my opinion, you need to do to be a happy, joyous person, especially if it has to do with dealing with a bullying situation. And sometimes you can't stop somebody from physically attacking you. And if nobody's going to do something, you're going to have to defend yourself. It's the McFly principle, just like in Back to the Future, that he was getting beaten up. All it took was one punch, and life is different. And sometimes it might take you to stand up to that person for you to do that. And that the challenge is if you're a parent that doesn't, feel powerful, doesn't feel love, feel shame, that trauma already probably is passed on to your kids from either environment or from genetics. So let's try to maybe move them in a different direction. That's why I recommend, first of all, always someone's mean to you, say and to them. And then also make sure that, you use the power look, top of the forehead. And even if you are an adult that has bullying stuff going on, look into trauma release and look into either screaming into a pillow and getting a good 2 minutes of crying and rage and yelling at the people that bullied you, because that's gone, but that trauma and that stuff is still inside you, which is going to eventually create disease. So getting that out so that you're not also bullying yourself, if that kind of makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is a tough topic, and we have to have lots of room for people to make their own decisions, because everybody has their own decisions, their own opinions about this. So I really appreciate everybody in the chat being so respectful for other people's situations and opinions around it. So that's awesome. And there's two more questions I want to end with, because we're just about we're out of time. But one of them is a kid who's getting bullied, and other kids are making fun of his ethnicity. What would the correct response or effective response be for that? And okay, I knew you were going to do that.
Please, Colby.
Well, no, I'm changing the subject so you can finish, because I like a different question that I just want to make sure it gets read.
Okay.
I mean, for me, anything, listen, I mean, I've been around, I was a pro wrestler for 12 years. The first 2 years, I didn't like going in pro wrestling locker rooms, because when these older school guys would say things to me, I would get offended, I would get ashamed or whatever it was. And then one day, my friends just like, you got to stand up to these guys. I'm like, you got to give them something back, like verbally. And I'm just like, that's so disrespectful. So, no, that's the environment. And then all of a sudden, some guy said something, something to me that was inappropriate. And then I said something inappropriate back. He stopped, he looked at me, he went, "Good one, kid." And I was immediately accepted into the locker room. And they're just mean people out there that, I mean, there's people that are stand-up comedians that I know, that one person is this nationality, one person is that nationality, and they rag on each other all the time. So it's really, but if you get offended, then it becomes bullying as opposed to just teasing back and forth. So if you don't want to show somebody that you're having a response, getting offended when they say something mean to you, whether you're 5 years old or whether you're 55 years old, just and then after a while, the response won't trigger the dopamine, and they'll move on to something else. Even if it's subconscious, they will.
Right. Yeah, that's great. That's great. If you can do it. I know it's tougher when you're a kid to do it.
It's training. You have. That's why this stuff you totally practice. If you watch some of my videos on my assembly programs, I have kids come up. I teach them how to use the hand shield. Then I hand the shield over to a kid and I make fun of them in front of everybody. And then what I do is I go and I'm like, all right, fine, now let's do it. And you'll see me in my assembly programs. I'm going around the entire auditorium of like 50, 60, 70 kids. Your shoes are ugly. And some of the kids are like, and I'm like, that's awesome. And and then some kids go, so, and then we have a conversation about responses and reactions. And I've had such amazing responses from teachers, like, oh, that little girl with the with the glasses, like, we thought she was going to get all upset. And then she just looked at you, she went, and we were so happy. I'm like, I wouldn't even know. Because that kid gave no reaction or response to the comment that I was making. She just did what I was trained. But how often are we trained what to do in these kind of situations?
Yeah. So, last question I have, and I think Colby has one too, is,
Please.
and I've seen it in the chat a couple of times, is, if it were me, my kid being bullied, I would be all over the parents of the kid who's doing the bullying. That I would just approach him. I wouldn't wait for the school. I mean, that's the way I do it. What do you recommend in those situations? Do you recommend that kind of approach as well? Or do you have a different approach that's,
Okay, so the first question I ask is when those people are growing up and instead of them handling the situations when their mom or their dad would go to the other person's mom or dad, how did that work out? Was it magically solved or did it get worse? And are you creating win-win by going and doing that? Or are you creating win-lose because you know it's going to get worse for your kid, but you're doing it because your brain is telling you it's the right thing to do and you want to be right and get your dopamine? And it's totally up to you, whatever you decide to do. My recommendation is I wouldn't do that because, I mean, if a child is a bully, where could the bullying possibly be coming from? And if it's not coming from another kid from the school that's teasing them, it could be coming from home. So now who knows what kind of Pandora's box you're going to be going into in that situation. And are you a lawnmower parent with have you heard of lawnmower parents? They so we know helicopter parents, they fly around and they hover over the kid. A lawnmower parent is one that mows down every obstacle and every challenge a child ever has so that they don't have a hard life, but then they learn no coping skills, no socialization skills. And it's very interesting because some of those parents are the ones that had a hard life and they turned out to be strong, confident, tough. So why wouldn't you give your kids challenges to have a hard life so their brains have more cognitive thinking and left brain and right brain start working together and puzzles and things like that. I'd rather have life be hard for kids than be easy and then they go out into the real world and wonder why they get a job in 3 weeks, why they're not the CEO with 500 raises.
yeah, and some great answers too in the chat about going to other parents. It does get worse. And sometimes, if the kid's a bully, parents are often bullies too. So there's something to be said for that as well. So
my question is the one that is when it's stories and they don't have the goal to say it to your face and they're spreading rumors about you. I'm working with a girl that's going through this right now, and there's just people talking about her around the school. It's just constant what she does in the bathroom and what she does at home and how she interacts. And so she just gets made fun of because of fake stories and rumors going around about her.
Do you want me to tell you my real answer? Do you want me to tell you the answer that you want to hear?
Real.
the one I want to hear.
The one you want to hear is document all the rumors, take screenshots of the pictures, reach out to an attorney, get the police involved, go on Facebook, go on Hula Frog, go on all these chat groups, talk to parents, find out what's really happening, all that. And those are really good suggestions.
Okay.
And the other one is she just goes right up to the first person that started, pops her right in the face, and that's it. And then anybody else that writes about it understands what the consequence is going to be, and then it's done. But that's the thing. And then now the human being gets to do that because we've been programmed. Well, this is right, this is wrong. I want to do this, I want to do that. So that's where the inner conflict comes in. I'm one person of 7.8 billion. This is my one opinion. So that's it. You do whatever you think is right. My thing is, I know what I teach helps kids stay victims less, so they don't stay a victim longer and eventually snap and either bully side themselves or do a Parkland, Columbine. I mean, you can name 50. Every other country, school shootings in the last 5 years, it's like 3, 4. You look at this one, it's 288. Why? Well, because schools aren't letting kids defend themselves.
All right, Ron, thank you so much for being
great advice. I agree. Great advice. I think.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Yeah, you need to absolutely take it with your grain of salt in your family, but at the same time, remember what maybe it's not a legacy, but remember that your child we want them to be able to stick up for themselves throughout their life. When mom and dad are in their own home and this is going on somewhere else, we need them to have the tools in their toolbox how to get through it.
All right.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Ron.
no easy solution, very difficult conversation. Everybody's got different opinions, and thank you all for being respectful in the chat box and just kind of being open to learning some new perspectives. And Ron, thank you for sharing yours. Powerful stuff. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
And,
great
and
job.
and I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to do that. I got a book called Breaking the Bullying Circle. If you want to find
Yeah.
that on Amazon or Kindle, and it's a real, every chapter is different. Like one chapter is about a mom who has a daughter that stood up for her friend at a birthday party, and now that mom and daughter are being shamed by parents that are, they're stuck in that we don't solve violence with violence. It's like, yeah, but your kid almost knocked my kid out type thing. Another chapter is about a principal of a public school that he's not going to do anything about a school bus bully because the bully's parents are friends of the superintendent. So it's like all these different interviews and things that I did for like 3-4 years, finding out what silliness and craziness could possibly happen. These are the things that are going on.
Can you hold up the book again?
Absolutely. I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely. It's called Breaking the Bullying Circle.
Okay, where can we find it?
Amazon,
Amazon, of course.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, I think. Yep, and it's like Kindle. It's like $5. It's like $15.
Breaking the Bullying Circle. Got it.
And for some reason, if anybody's out there and you can't afford it, then just reach out to me and I'll mail you a copy for free.
Got it. All right. Well, thanks again, Ron. Thanks for coming on, and we will see you next time.
Great job,
I
Ron.
appreciate
Thank
you
you
all.
so much.
All
That's
right,
tough
have a
topic.
good one,
Great job.
everyone. My
You too.
pleasure.
You too.
Bye.